Hello and welcome to NFT Decree. I'm Barry and today I'm going to do some theory crafting. Right, so this is going to be, there's some talks at the moment about balancing and changes that are coming to the game. There's a couple of cards that are certainly overtuned. You see them in far too many decks for it to be fun. But balancing a whole game is very, very tricky. So doing it as a whole is not something I'm really going to be covering. And I don't really like doing these because, like, ideas are cheap, right? But we're not going to see any of this necessarily implemented because I've got literally zero control over the game, right? I'm not the designer. I'm not able to influence kind of what their plans are for the game in any meaningful way. But I mean, if you do like what I'm about to go through, then I'm happy to do it with some other ones, and then hopefully it's some ideas. Hopefully, some of them might be taken on board or incorporated into some things that the Dark Country team are doing already. But for today, I'm just going to focus on one faction or one creature type in particular, right? And that is ghosts. So ghosts are pretty weak as a whole, right? They're lacking in any real synergy. They've got no specific identity. And so I'm going to look through ghosts as a whole and give some, just basically give my thoughts, like what I want to see from a archetype, right? So a ghosts archetype, a tribal deck centered around ghosts. You don't necessarily have to agree, but it's hopefully something to think about. So I'm going to talk about ghosts being built around a few themes. First one's stealth. I mean, ghosts can move through walls and whatever else. They can dodge bullets, or don't even need to dodge bullets. It goes right through them. Graveyard recursion, which is not a mechanism we've got from any faction or any cards at the moment. Definitely something that you see in as games mature. The different areas of the game are going to be interacted with more, and I'd like ghosts to be the one that interacts with the graveyards more so than undead even, but certainly undead will have some of that as well. And I'm also going to give them a little bit of item hate. Items aren't heavily used except in sort of cowboys at the moment, Resolute Rangers, but give them like a counter to it, and also in keeping with the theme, let them not be able to use items. So anything that they're balanced around, they don't have to worry about balancing it in conjunction with any particular items, so they can get some boosts somewhere, or to try and just even things out. So I'm going to go through all the cards. Stick with me if you want to see it. If not, there's other videos. If you want to see something that's much more factual, something that's going to impact your game, then I've got other videos. Go check them out. So the first card that's a ghost is the Young Recruit, and that is a 1/1 for 0, and I would leave that as is, right? I mean, that's absolutely fine, in particular because we're going to be spawning some of these, so we can't buff this in any way. A 0 cost 1/1's still decent, but I'll give it the keyword ethereal. So ethereal just means that it can't use items, or can't have items played on it, and this would be both beneficial or not beneficial, but impact both yours and your opponent's items. So at the moment, things like Poison Dart, say, are not that's a spell rather than an item. But let's say there was negative status effect items, ghosts would also be immune to that. So just something to think about when balancing. Again, at the moment, we don't have any items that you play on your opponent's creatures, but if that happens, then ghosts can't have them. So that's the first ghost. Your second ghost is the Ghost of Gettysburg. Now you'll notice I didn't speak about spell damage increases as being a thematic theme for thematic theme, obviously. A theme for ghosts, right? So I'm going to take this away. I'm going to take away the increased spell damage. It'll still be 2 cost 1/1. with Ethereal, right? So can't have any items. But I'd change that to be at the end of your turn, Ghost of Gettysburg gains stealth. Now, that's interesting. Obviously, it can still be hit by area of effects or things that don't target it, but it kind of ensures it stays on the board. It kind of ensures that you're getting that 1 damage across every turn. Now, remember, they can't have items, so the fact that you can't ever target this, it's going to take some other cards to buff it. And if you play this turn 2, you're just 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage for quite some time until you get any kind of buffs. Like ghosts here, I've not put any buffs in until like turn 6, turn 6 really. There's not a lot of ghost buffs in here. For that one. So it having stealth at the end of every turn is not a huge problem. Plays into the ghost theme. It's not typically used for this increased spell damage. That can go into a different faction or a different archetype outside of ghosts, I think. Then we've got Repsack. So Repsack at the moment is a 2 cost 2/3. I would change that to a 2 cost 2/2 with Ethereal and another new keyword, and that is Haunt. Right, so Haunt's a keyword that means when this creature is killed, return a ghost with a lower cost from your graveyard and give it Beyond. So there's two new keywords for you, right? So Haunt lets you, if Repsack dies, last word, right? When Repsack dies, it can go and get, well, it can't actually get Ghost of Gettysburg, but it can get a young recruit. Actually, I've not thought about the 1 cost slots, but maybe it doesn't need it. So it can go and get a young recruit from your graveyard, and it comes back into play. Now Beyond, right, which then it gets the keyword Beyond. Beyond is the keyword that basically means that when it's killed, it is removed from the game, right? Instead of going into your graveyard, so you've not got infinite recursion with ghosts, but you can recur some things once. So the advantage to, or the real reason for Haunt as a keyword is it kind of, rather than summon something new, it summons something that's already in your graveyard, and you get a choice if it's a high enough haunt, but it stops those board wipes really just kind of completely ending your game, right? There's always going to be something there. Now the fact that ghosts can't use items is again the reason why I'm okay with recurring them, because it's not like you can then buff a little guy that's come back. It's just to give you a board presence, and we've tried to play on that with some of the other cards. That you're going to have some sort of board presence. So I think the recursion, or the limited recursion that Haunt gives you, is something that's pretty decent. Then I'd actually give Vortex, so both Hanged Lady and Spectre have the ghost trait. Vortex doesn't, but I think, there's no way you're not telling me that's not supernatural. So I'd give Vortex the ghost trait, and otherwise I'd just kind of leave it as it is. I'd give it Ethereal. Typically you're not going to get a chance to play an item on a Vortex, but just in case something happens that you do, and that would allow Vortex to be incorporated into Ghost X. Then we've got Drowned Woman. Again, Drowned Woman I'd kind of leave a little bit as is. So 4 cost 3/3. With the same deploy effect, destroy target creature's items. Would of course have Ethereal, but I would also give it stealth on the turn it comes in. Like, it's not doing a huge amount of damage, getting one swing off with it, and the limited nature of destroying other creatures' items. Often there's not any items on board. Again, if you're not against rangers, it can be a dead ability. So just giving her stealth, she's under the water, and gets across for a turn. You get 3 damage out of it before they can hit you back, so that's not too bad. So roughly as is, but with a few buffs. Ethereal, downgrade, but stealth an upgrade there. Then you've also got the Headless Horseman, right? So the Headless Horseman, 4/3/3, I'd give it Ethereal. No, actually I wouldn't, right? So it gets Haunt, right? So it can bring back your 3 costs, so your Vortexes, Repsacks, Young Recruits, Ghost of Gettysburg, right, at 4 with Haunt. It is the exception to the Ethereal rule, right, which ironically continues to make him one of the most useless cards, because you're not going to be playing items in a ghost deck. So I thought, just because of the art and because of the sort of story behind the Headless Horseman, I've let him keep his ability to use items. But if you're running items in the ghost deck, this is the only card that can use it. And so you're limited to three creatures that can actually use your items. So it's just clogging up your deck with items that you might not be able to play. And the haunt, like I say, the haunt ability just makes this a bit more useful. When he dies, you can bring back something else. So it is an improvement. Then in the 5 slot, you got Bait. So Bait is 5 cost 3/4, has +3/+0 on enemy's turn. I'd keep that. I'd keep, I might not. Could you give this? Nah, I think you keep it with Ethereal. But I'd also give it Fortify, right? So the whole theory behind it is that it attracts the unwary passerby with this like baby crying appendage, and they're suckered in and have to be hit. So the +3/+0 and Fortify kind of really thematically emphasise that. And because at the moment your opponent can pretty much ignore this, it's only 3 damage across to you. They never really have to hit it. If you want to play Fortify, I think just starting with Fortify makes this better at the 5 cost. Because even like a 5/6/4, here you've got Widow 5/6/4 with a mute ability, which is strictly stronger. But I think adding Fortify to this is enough to make it playable in a ghost deck. And then we've got Grave Ghost, so 5/5/5, so that's absolute match. And ghosts cost 1 less. Give it Ethereal. This is fine. I mean, there's other cost reducers that are cheaper, but with the with the semi-recursive nature of ghosts going forward, I think this is fine in the 5 slot. I wouldn't bring the cost reducers down much cheaper. Like, this can also stay on the board for a couple of turns. It's big enough, so this is okay as is. But obviously now we have to make the assumption that you've got at least one of these down, and everything else is coming out on average 1 cheaper. So it's balancing it at around half a point more than, or half a point less than the cost. Then we've got Ghost of Mariachi for 6. I changed this quite a bit, but mostly the stats, right? A 1/6 and giving friendly ghosts +1/+1. Now we know that ghosts are going to be sticking around, so this is your first buff to those little guys, right? Particularly the Ghosts of Gettysburg with stealth. Now they're 2/2s. But by the time turn 6 rolls around, your opponent's going into turn 7. Suddenly, if they're Ancestral Guard, they've got Van Meter Monster or Tornadoes online, and even a Fire Spirit. What will kind of take out your Ghosts of Gettysburg. So I would buff this guy a little bit. I'd make him a 4/4, so 6 for a 4/4, and give friendly ghosts +1/+1. And so this is kind of balanced around it being 5.5 points, right? In addition to assuming you're always going to have ghosts on board, which you don't at the moment, and that makes this card absolutely useless. Because it's very rare that you've still got ghosts sticking around. So this makes it a bit better in general. Oh, and of course the Hanged Lady, which I missed. Keep that the same, give it Ethereal. I think this is fine. It sees its way into non-ghost decks. If this is coming out for 4 after a Grave Ghost, it's better. So that's cool. Then we have Banjo Man. So Banjo Man's a ghost. Alright, fine. 6 for a 4/4. Okay, fine. This doesn't really play into the themes though. Give target friendly creature +2/+0. It's just not. It's not particularly great. Now it could be good on the Ghosts of Gettysburg if they gain stealth every turn. But I'm going to change this to playing into the stealth themes more. So I'm assuming he's given his rock concert with the banjo, and all eyes are on him. So he's going to give all other friendly ghosts stealth, and I'm going to give him haunt, right? So this could end up being quite a strong card in the grand scheme of things. Like at 6, giving 3, 4, 5 creatures maybe stealth for a turn. Obviously then you're not defending anything, right? But if you're managing to keep your board state up, then this could be quite a strong card to have. So again, all these things are theory crafting, right? I can't play with them, I can't test them, I can't see if it's too strong or too weak. It's all just based on experience to some degree, and maybe with all of these changes it's too much, right? Maybe Ghosts becomes the dominant meta deck, but I don't think it would be. I think it's just kind of I think it'd be a good baseline, right? If you can beat Ghosts, then you've got a pretty good deck, and if you can't beat Ghosts, you need to make some changes. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Then Mustang, keep it the same, 7/2/6. You can already half play it. It's not brilliant, but you can half play it. Have Ethereal, of course, can't have items. But if you're playing it in a Ghost deck and you've got more chance of getting the Grave Ghosts out, then for 6, that's pretty much okay. Then for 7, Spectre, same thing, keep it the same, give it Ethereal, all good. Forest Ghost, so Forest Ghost is a weird one. I get, it's a Forest Ghost, so it summons wolves, but I don't want wolves. What I am proposing to change here, same, 8 cost, 4/4. Instead of 2 wolves, I'm going to propose to buff it quite significantly and give it 2 vortexes. So vortices. Now, the reason for this is, well, there's a couple of reasons for this. One, it straight up buffs the card, right? Being able to fire off 2 vortexes on turn 8 and get a 4/4 body down is pretty strong. But for Ghosts in particular, and for other factions that aren't Ancestral Guard, there's quite limited removal. And these vortexes, if you're up against big creatures, they only get 1 hit off. But if you're trying to clear the board from a couple of little creatures, then that has the effect needed. And I think that the 8 spot is roundabout right for some pretty reasonable removal from cards. So I think that adding 2 letting him summon 2 vortexes. Now, is that thematic for the Forest Ghost? Yeah. Not as thematic, I don't think, but I'd say it's more thematic than 2 wolves for a Ghost deck. So I would go for that. Right, it's kind of a strict upgrade, and it gives some limited removal to Ghosts, which they might be struggling with otherwise. And then there's no other Ghosts apart from Overseer. So 10/10 Ethereal. Now this is vanilla at the moment, but I would argue that anytime you're putting a 10 cost card into your deck and there's at best it's a 9 with your reducers. I suppose you could get 3 of them, so at best it's a 7, in which case it's great. But it's just too vanilla, so I'd give this last word and then like a super haunt, right? So when this creature is killed, return any number of ghost creatures with haunt to the battlefield. Now obviously not every ghost creature has haunt. None of the Hanged Lady, Spectre, Vortexes have haunt. Mustang doesn't have haunt. Bait doesn't have haunt. Grave Ghost doesn't have haunt. So there's a bunch of things you can't bring back with this, but you could bring back a significant amount of things. But obviously, if you bring everything back, then they've all got Beyond, which means they're not going back into your grave, so you can't trigger haunt further down the line, right? So I think it's actually not too bad as a balance for it, and it is just like this super haunt effect for your Overseers. So then there's no ghosts in Rangers or Crusaders, or the other way around, Crusaders and Rangers. There are a couple of ghosts in Horde. Well, there's one ghost in Horde, right? Grim Chariot. Other than giving this ethereal, just for thematic purposes more than anything else. No changes. Now that giving this ethereal is actually a, what's the word I'm after? A nerf. That's the word I'm after. Because at the moment you could play this and you could get a pretty decent item on it. Now nothing out of here. What's the best item you can maybe put on it? You could get a knife on it, like Blood Dagger or something on it. But you don't see that very often, right? But that is a pretty decent finisher with your one-off Grim Chariot. But I'd leave that where it is. That's fine. And then Ancestral Guard has a couple of ghosts. First one Shadow. I'd give it ethereal. Otherwise, same. Last word. Put a random spell in hand. And then Spectre Moose. I would. So within AG, I'd let ghosts have this kind of spell interactions, right? So put a random spell into hand for last word. This one I'd have a deploy, add a random spell to hand. So this keeps it functionally similar, right? Gets you a card when you play it, but doesn't thin the deck, and it's always going to be a spell, or generating spells, it's more of an Ancestral Guard thing, so it makes sense that this Ghost's in the Ancestral Guard deck. And this, this sees limited play at the moment. I think the fact, if we take it so it doesn't draw a card from your deck and adds a random spell, I think it makes it a little bit weaker in a lot of decks. So might be a slight nerf, but again, if you want to play it out of an AG Ghost spell deck, then it might still be okay for that. So there are 2 ghosts that are not yet implemented. Let me bring these over. First one's Cemetery Angel, right? Cemetery Angel's the one that can't move so much. Give it ethereal. I'd keep it like it doesn't. It's not thematically doing anything, but not everything has to be on theme, right? Just kind of makes sense. When something dies, this gets +4 health, so it's 4 for a 5/5. But obviously you need to. There's a lot of extra work for it, so this is pretty good. This could give the sort of middle of the ghost deck quite a decent boost. Like, it just 4 for a 5/5 is a pretty good deal. And if you do bring it out in a later turn, 3 for a 5/5 is a very good deal in that sense. And then the Ghost of PGT Beauregard, 7 cost, so that's kind of the top end of your monster range typically. 4/8, which is fine. +1/+1 for each ghost you control. So with the Haunt ability, this is now pretty darned huge, right? When this comes out, chances are you've got a board of 4 or 5 ghosts, and this suddenly 7 cost for a let's just say 4, right? So for an 8/12 is massive now. By the time you're at turn 7, there's certainly plenty of options for muting this guy. And that's really how you shut down a lot of the sort of ghost activity, but mute's a powerful ability and should impact ghosts as well. But the second part of that is at the end of your turn, you summon a 1/1 ghost recruit. And so that's fine, that's your 0 cost young recruits. That needs updated slightly. And then that goes in your bin. You can bring it back with Haunt, so again plays in a little bit to the Overseers. If you've brought out a whole bunch of things, you've had PGT Beauregard on the board, you can get a lot done there. So that is quite a decent chunk for the ghost deck, right? So the thematic ghost deck and the sort of faction identity, or the tribal identity. There are a couple of things missing. Certainly something in the 1 slot. I'd have to have a think. Nothing in the 9 slot. Something else there. So they probably need some spells. They probably need some. They probably need some spells that reinforces these themes, right? So let's assume Fogman's not a ghost, but he would fit into a ghost deck, right? Friendly creatures gain stealth. So that is a more expensive version of Banjo Man, but Banjo Man only targets ghosts. Friendly ghosts gain stealth, or all other friendly ghosts gain stealth. So it's got a reduction, but also has much more niche use. So I would probably add in so a 9 cost spell, right? So big spell, Ectoplasm. And that adds 4 Ghostly Shrouds to hand. Right? And Ghostly Shroud is a 0 cost spell that says give target creature stealth. So again, that's another way you're going to be keeping your things on board. If you play that PGT Beauregard turn 10 after your Ectoplasm, you're going to give them a chance to build up by playing more ghosts. So that's pretty good. I know it costs 9 for what it is, but I think that's about the right level. It could actually be that giving this much stealth out is too powerful, but I'm bearing in mind that Ancestral Guard still have access to their board wipes, and if it was up to me, other people would be getting a bit more of that board wipe untargeted damage action. And then maybe for 2 cost, you've got Jam, which is destroy target creature's items. Now that doesn't have to be in ghosts, right? It'll be a 2 cost spell for anybody. So it's just a way to handle if items start to get out of control. People can put jam in to start removing them. But it does play into ghost themes. And then a ghost specific spell at 3 cost, haunted, return up to 2 ghosts with the haunt keyword to your hand. Now there's a lot there that does stuff with haunt, so you're going to have to balance your deck around how much stuff you return, how much stuff you play, because you could very easily run out of things to haunt with, and then your deck kind of falls apart. So the balance there, and you've got multiple options, which is what I want to see in any kind of deck building, right? You need multiple ways to achieve something similar, and then whoever's come up with the best way, the best balance for that is important. So I mean that's it really. I mean that's theory crafting. Can I imagine what that deck would look like? So do I play these? Yeah, I mean I'd have to put in the ghost recruits. I'd have 3 of these. I'd have 3 of these. Then I wouldn't probably play too many jams at the moment, but that's an option for later. Then I would have 3 of these. Are there any spells in here for 3? Well, let's just say that this is, I put in 2 haunteds, in case things started to go quite poorly for me. I put in 1 drowned woman maybe, just as to hedge my bets. Then would I have a Headless Horseman? So he does have haunt in my version, so I'd maybe run 2 of those. Actually, I'd maybe run 1 of those. I'd probably have some draw. If this had fortify, I'd probably play them. Definitely want 3 of those for the reducers. I'd want 3 hang ladies. I'd have 2 ghosts of mariachis. I'd have 1 Banjo Man, so that's situational. You want to play it at the right time. Would I have a Mustang? Does the same thing. You know what, in this deck maybe not. I'd have to consider it at least. I mean I'd want a simple shepherd anyway, right? I mean I could still consider playing owl bears, but let's assume that these get nerfed as well slightly. So I'd have 2 spectres. I'd have 2 forest ghosts because that vortex ability is pretty strong. I'd have 1 I'd have 1 overseer, I think. And then I've got 3 slots left, so if I was playing it in a particular faction I could bring something up. What am I missing? What would be a common starting kind of card? Maybe like I could throw in liquidators. Obviously it's not thematic, right, but they would kind of save me. I've got 3 slots left, 3 open slots. That could be for 3 liquidators, 3 owl bears. May want to consider fanatics even. There's no mute in this deck, is there? So I'd probably throw in 3 fanatics, and then that would kind of be it. I'd hope to just have enough creatures on board throughout the whole thing. But actually I'd want PGT Beauregard, wouldn't I? So I would probably, he's a one-off, so I'd probably sack off a hang lady for a PGT Beauregard, and that'd kind of be my deck. So all very possible. But there are of course different balances, there are of course different balances for what you take at the top end and even what you take at the bottom end. How many of each ghost do you need? Maybe I don't need as many of them. In fact, I'd probably want more of this than rep sacks, right? Because they can only bring these back, but PGT Beauregard creates them. Yeah, anyway, that's it. So this is just theory crafting. I mean, if you like that as an idea, if you want me to do some other balancing and card ideas, I can. But like I say, it's a bit pointless because I've no control, right? I can't do anything to the game. I can't make any changes. But if you like my ideas and, you can highlight them to the developers, you can let me know what you think in the feedback. Excuse me, choking. But yeah, that's it. So until next time, this is NFT Decree signing off.